I'm not sure who's typing, but they are a lot faster than I am.
Okay. And we should be live.
All right. Everyone ready? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is Berlin Mayor and Council's regular session scheduled for Monday, February 22nd, 2001. We'll begin our meeting with a moment of silence. Please join me. All right, and Mary has a flag ready for us, so please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America
and to the
and the
republic
republic
for which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice
for all. Thank you. So just a couple housekeeping items before we begin. We are coming to you via Zoom. The public comments will only be accepted for this meeting via Zoom. During the public comment section, agenda item number 9, please state your full name and your property address the same way you would during open session. And then you're welcome to, once you've been recognized, to state your concern or question before the council. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of the minutes for executive session held on February 8th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Orris,
Second that motion.
and I have a second by Councilmember Nichols. Councilmember Nur, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously to approve the executive session minutes from February 8th, 2021. Agenda item 1B is the statement of closure for the executive session of February 8th, 2021. I'll read that aloud. So the statement of the time and place and the purpose of the closed session was for February 8th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. The place was virtual via Zoom with public statement and vote open to the public using Facebook Live and Zoom. The purpose of the closed session was to discuss the potential new legal counsel for the electric utility, and the date and time that we returned to public meeting was on February 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The recorded vote, the motion was made by Councilmember Nur. It was seconded by Councilmember Burrell. Councilmember Nichols and Orris voted in favor. No members were opposed and none abstained. Councilmember Purnell was absent. The statutory authority for closing the session is this meeting was closed under the following provisions of the General Provisions Article, Section 3-305B. Topic number 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials with whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. And topic number 7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter. Number 4, there's a listing of each topic that was actually discussed, the persons present, and each action taken in the session. The topic description was the potential new legal counsel for the electric utility. Persons present were myself, Mayor Zach Tyndall, Vice President of the Council, Dean Burrell, Council Members Nichols, Orris, Town Administrator Fleetwood, Town Attorney David Gaskell, Deputy Town Administrator Mary Boland, and the Finance Director Natalie Slay. Present until 6:50 p.m. was Miss Kimmel. And action taken and each recorded vote, there was a motion to enter into an agreement for legal services with Phyllis Kimmel of Phyllis G. Kimmel Law Office, PLLC, and it was approved unanimously by the council. The statement has been made by Mayor Zach Tyndall, the presiding officer, and there's a list of the members who have received open meetings training with that public statement. All right, so let's move on to, it's a mouthful, but it's good information. 1C, the regular session meeting minutes from February 8th, 2021.
Yeah, Mayor, I just have a couple corrections under the number one, the approval of minutes. There's no names with the council members who voted to approve and second.
I did speak with Councilmember Orris about this, and it should read that Councilmember Orris made the motion and Councilmember Nur seconded the motion. So I will make that correction.
Thank you.
Mayor, just a correction. I also had the opens meeting training.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Burrell. Can we add Councilmember Burrell to that sheet as well? And if anybody else, we tried to do a record of who's attended and who has not. If it's not accurate, please let us know so that we can make sure that form's accurately represented. Thank you, Councilmember Burrell.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question as well. In the minutes, towards the end, under the public comment sections, you make reference to an anonymous comment that was submitted, and you said you couldn't read it because they didn't obviously have their name or address. So my question is, the council wasn't privy to that question, so we have no idea what it was. But my question is this: some residents may have a very legitimate question to ask pertaining to town business or whatever it may be, but need to use discretion when asking that for various reasons. Is there any legal reason why they have to provide their name and address if they're submitting a question and it's a legitimate question?
That's a good question. I'm going to defer to our town attorney, David Gaskell.
There's not a legal reason to require persons to state their name and address. It's just a matter of form that I believe that councils in the past have always required people when they're present at meetings and we're not on Zoom to state their name and address.
And the reason, one of the other reasons I'll add to that, and it's not been uncommon before a prior Zoom, if you will, open meeting, you can have people in here from Whaleyville, from Ocean Pines, lodging their issue, and it has no bearing on them where they reside.
That may be true, but suppose the question is a legitimate question that, they don't want to mention who they are because it might affect a neighbor or something like that.
Well, if we were not in this pandemic and we were having open meetings, those folks would be expected to voice those questions in open public meetings. Thus, I think it's not unreasonable to ask folks to give their name if they have a question. When you get into anonymous questions, not everyone, and you said that it may be a legitimate question, but not everyone has that in mind when asking questions anonymously. Therefore, to keep that out of our meetings, I think it's only right and just to ask folks to give their names. And remember, if we were not in this pandemic and if we were having open public meetings, those folks would have the same expectation in the public meetings.
I don't want to turn this into a huge debate right now because we've got a big meeting ahead of us, but I'll just say, you're not incorrect. There are people that would submit some crazy questions or what, but those questions could be vetted. And when we do go back to public meeting format, people still can write in questions. That's not prohibited. So I'm just wondering, if the question's vetted and it's a legitimate question, I believe it should be able to be read.
And I understand where both of you are coming from. I have to say that it becomes difficult at a time when you expect staff or any one of us to begin a vetting process of anonymous inquiries or statements or anything of that nature. there is a medium for which people can address things if they want to remain somewhat anonymous. That's their representative. That's a phone call, reaching out and saying, hey, look, I might not feel that it's the best place for me to address it publicly, but I want you to understand how I feel. That's why we're all in the positions that we're in. But I have to agree with Councilmember Burrell that it's a slippery slope if we begin to apply discretion to anonymous questions. So I have a motion, I believe, with amendments by Councilmember Orris for the regular session meeting minutes of February 8th, 2021. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
I have a second by Councilmember Nur. Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
I agree. I accept.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting minutes with amendments by Councilmember Orris from our regular session of February 8th, 2021 passed unanimously with all council members present. So let's move on to agenda item number 2, which is resolution 2021-01, and it's the adoption or proposed adoption of the Worcester County Hazard Mitigation Plan and Worcester County Emergency Services Emergency Management Director Billy Birch and Town Administrator Jeff Fleetwood and Planning and Zoning Director Dave Engelhardt are a running point on this.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to go over what the plan actually is and its purpose. We are going to be talking about the 2020 Hazardous Mitigation Plan, which is a 5-year plan required by FEMA and MEMA. This was an update of the 2014 plan. It was not a total new plan from start. The basic premise of this was we formed a stakeholders group of county departments, all towns, associations, and public organizations. We wanted all kinds of input. The group performed needs assessments and they produced a lot of recommendations. We collected a mass amount of public input through outreach programs that we've actually notated in the plan. Our consultant provided updated scientific data and sources to reinforce some of the recommendations and goals. And we are very pleased to announce to you that we were able to provide each town with their own separate chapter. In particular, one of the things that was brought up very early on with our emergency management planner was that you guys wanted to address some resilience issues in the hazardous mitigation plan. And just preparing for the meeting tonight, I just wanted to cover this too. I think it kind of helps us out. The hazardous mitigation and resilience plan seeks to eliminate or reduce hazardous related human, economic, and environmental losses. This plan is written by and for Worcester County. This plan includes unincorporated areas of Worcester County and the towns of Berlin, Pocomoke, Snow Hill. Ocean City's included in the plan. However, Mayor and Council, they actually do their own separate plan where they're identified. And that was actually completed in 2017. So they're getting ready to come through their update also. And to end that, the 2014 plan, like I said, has been updated to include the new information, mapping, and a hazardous level 2 enhanced analysis. Now, the reason why we did the plan, I think this last paragraph kind of sums it up very well, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. With your approval of this plan, Worcester County and the towns of Pocomoke, Berlin, and Snow Hill will remain eligible for funding for several sources, including Maryland Management Association, which is MEMA, and FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Funding is available for pre-disaster and post-disaster mitigation projects, as well as recovery and reconstruction. These funds is not available without an approved plan. And again, that's why we're coming to you tonight to ask for you to adopt the plan and to address any issues. The plan is required every 5 years. And the intent of emergency services is to keep this plan relevant and current and ease the 5-year update burden and process. Therefore, it's essential that we keep this document as a living document and we update it as needed so that it addresses any known hazards in the future.
Thank you. Is there anything that Town Administrator Fleetwood or Planning Director Engelhardt would like to add to Mr. Birch's presentation?
I would, Mary Bolin and Dave Engelhardt both served on that committee. So they've had some significant involvement with that. And I think back a number of years ago when the first plan was drafted and approved, and this elected body chose to piggyback off of, I know I was part of that, and it was a lot of work, a lot of consultants. I can tell you that, folks that I call them the scientists and the smart folks. It was pretty interesting. But I just want to remind everyone in the mitigation plan that the link that you had to go to, it's quite lengthy. I encouraged everyone to read the executive summary, which was the first page or so, and then Mr. Birch had provided an email that I had sent out with 5 bullets to focus on that, and then turn to focus on the tab, if you will, for Berlin. And then just to differentiate for a second, this is a mitigation plan, and a mitigation plan is to help prepare, if you will, to minimize losses, versus a resilience plan, which is basically a plan that's put together dealing with the capacity to recover, or in layman's terms, how fast can you spring back? So, Dave, anything else to add?
No, this was our way of, as Mr. Birch mentioned, making sure we are in the running for any grant funding with FEMA, MEMA, and different state agencies, federal agencies. We have joined in this mitigation plan in the past with the county. And from the beginning, we were able to get our input, like he mentioned, the Berlin chapter, but we are under their umbrella or their protection with a hazard mitigation plan. The alternative is like he mentioned with Ocean City. They are large enough, they have the resources, they have the staffing to create their own, and they have their own problems with coastal flooding, obviously, with where they lie along the shoreline. Our flooding issues are what are usually deemed nuisance flooding. They are storm-driven events, rain-driven events, snow-driven events like we've seen lately. We've had a lot of rain and we had the snow, and we still have water in several places. So we need to stay in the hunt for grant funding so that we can continue our work we have with stormwater. And that's been our major issue as far as being involved with the hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you. Before we open it up for questions, I would like to say, Director Birch, if you could pass along our thanks to the county commissioners and everybody involved for having our town staff involved in this process, and for making sure that our municipality has a separate chapter devoted to some of our needs and some of the issues facing us. I do see Councilmember Orris with a question, so go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Birch. Just a quick question or two. Now, this doesn't obligate the town of Berlin to anything, correct?
No, sir. It's just identifying any current or future hazards. Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, if we weren't to go this way, we would have to go on our own at a cost of, I would guess, probably significant, correct?
Yes, sir. And it's a lengthy process. It takes about a year, and that's if everything goes correctly.
And it also, like Dave Engelhardt said, makes us eligible for FEMA, MEMA grants and mitigation monies as that becomes available. So,
okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from?
I want to add one more thing, just from experience in the 11 years I've been here. The last time that this scenario reared its head was back, I believe it was Superstorm Sandy. And I will tell you that with the FEMA and the MEMA folks, when they come on site, one of the first questions that they ask, do you have a hazard mitigation plan? That's one of the first questions. And then it gets into a lengthy process where you document. And we've been very fortunate with each incident that we've had with FEMA and MEMA, where we have received our monies back. So that's a good thing.
And then I just actually had one more thing, and I did email this question to Jeff, and he got the correct clarification from Billy, Mr. Birch, excuse me. On page 212, the table
Put it
2.6,
up, Harry.
there was I guess it was just a typographical error on the policies in force. This is the correct graph, and the link that the folks at home and anyone watching can click on, it does have currently, the town of Berlin has 90 policies with 24 million written premium in force, and it's actually 69 at 34,000 total coverage, 19 million. So I just wanted to clarify, I wanted to clear that up because by comparison to other municipalities, it seemed a little off. And that's not to throw anyone under the bus or anything. I just wanted to clear that up for anyone who was looking at that and saw that variance. And thank you, gentlemen, for looking into it and answering that question for me.
And just to address that real quick, Councilman, we are going to be updating our plan. We have a master file, and that is going to be an amendment and an attachment to our plan moving forward with that new updated information, which you have up right now. Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. The plan makes reference to the fact that the county adopted the International Building Code and the International Residential Code. Has Berlin adopted those codes as well?
Yes, we use International Residential Code and the International Building Code.
Okay, good.
Latest version is 2018.
2018. Okay, thank you. Next question. Some of our communities within Berlin are responsible for their own stormwater ponds. Are they eligible for FEMA funding on their own, or do they have to apply through a municipality like Berlin? So if they had flooding in their area, in their HOA area, would they be able to apply for FEMA funding?
Jay, I truly don't have an answer on that. I think that's an interesting question, but I will research that and follow up with all of you regarding the correct answer.
Okay. And my last question was under mitigation actions, and this is specifically on the Berlin pages. It talks about tier 2 stormwater projects, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 being different locations within Berlin. What exactly is a tier 2 project versus a tier 1? What's the difference?
Mary, can we go back to the full screen so I can see everyone in case somebody's trying to speak? Thank you.
And I'm going to defer that to either Billy or to Dave Engelhardt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the differentiation on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
So can we look into that and the stormwater funding for the HOAs through FEMA and MEMA? And Director Birch, if you could also see if you could ask as well, maybe you'll get a similar response. Or
Yes, I will work with Mr. Fleetwood, and I'll definitely get an answer for your mayor and council. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Director Birch or pertaining to the Worcester County Hazard Mitigation Plan? If not, we are seeking action by the council for this resolution.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the Worcester County Hazard and Mitigation.
Resolution 2021-01, adopting the Worcester County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Councilmember Orris has made a motion to approve. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that motion.
And I have a second by Councilmember Nur. Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the resolution 2021-01 adopting the Worcester County Hazard Mitigation Plan passes unanimously with all council members present. Thank you, Director Birch, for the presentation and for the documentation. And if you don't mind, just follow up on those 2 points from Councilmember Nur.
I will. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Billy.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 3, which is the general fund balance and categories discussion. And it's going to be our finance director, Natalie Slay, running point on this.
Good evening, everybody. We're moving into the budget season and budget time, and also we're going to be presenting a reserve policy draft in the next meeting. So I figured we will talk a little bit about general fund. I won't take a lot of time and I won't go into the heavy numbers, but I guess it would be more useful for everybody to understand what's general fund and what are the layers of general fund and what the general fund do. So the next slide is basically a description. What is general fund? The general fund is the general operating fund of the town. General fund used to account and report all the financial resources not accounted for and reported in other funds. It includes all transactions for general government services. So basically, it's our general operating fund. All the revenues that come into the fund mostly derived from taxes, grants, licenses, and permit fees. All the resources that generated and come into the fund been spent on the general government with accordance of our budget that approved by mayor and council every year. To manage all that, there is a fund accounting in place, and it's necessarily. So next slide is a basically overview of 2 years. Those are numbers that are audited from the financial statements. I'm not going to go line by line. It's just a general understanding what revenue coming from, what are the general fund revenue by source. Most of the revenues that come into the general fund is from property taxes. As we can see on our 2020 numbers, those are broken down by the percentage. Almost 60% is coming from the property tax. The other large portion is coming from, 16% intergovernmental revenues, which are grants. Then we also have other taxes of 7%, licenses and permits, about 3.5%. Service charges to other funds, it's our reimbursements from the utility funds, and other services, impact fees, and our little small other miscellaneous revenues. For fiscal 2020, the general fund had $6.8 million collected in those revenues. So where are they going after all? So next slide will give us a general fund expenditure by the program. And programs basically is our departments of our fund. We have several departments. The largest is the general government, which include finance, admin, and it's 26%. Also here is the customer service as well. Then we have public safety is our largest part of the expenses. Public safety is 39% of the general fund expenditures. We have public works, planning and community development, small percent of recreation and parks. We have debt service and capital outlays. So overall for fiscal 2020, we had an expenditures equal to $5.8 million. So what does it do? On the next slide, it's a simple presentation of what exactly happening when revenues are larger than expenses, or if the revenues are smaller than the expenses. That affects our balance at the fund as the net change in fund balance. So general fund for fiscal 2020 had a positive number, and in fiscal 2019 we had a negative number, and those numbers are rolling into the fund balance and give us the finalized amount. So that pretty much we're done here with the numbers that I've gone through fast. But that just gives you an overview, the revenues coming in, the expenses going out, the ending balance is what the fund balance change upon with. So let's look at what is the fund balance. Next slide is just the simple words to put in what is the fund balance. Assets minus liabilities equal fund balance. But we're not talking about long terms. Here it's mostly over short-term liabilities and short-term assets. And then that would create our fund balance. Well, often people think when they look at the fund balance and start thinking that's overall the health of the town, that's overall health of the financial or the financial shape. It is true if the balance is low or if we're running on a deficit, that the town will need some improvement in the financial situation. But having a large balance at the end of the year doesn't mean that it's great or good, because there are so many components or layers of the fund. We should look at and understand what each layer means and what does it do. So those components represent liquidity or spendability of the fund. And we have 5 components in general. Next, please. So I'm just gonna give you a little second to look through. Those are 5 components, generally going by the restrictions or by the spendability. So the very first one is non-spendable. That's basically what it is. You cannot spend it. Those amounts cannot be spent, and they could be in the form of inventory or legally or contractually required to be maintained in the fund. Then the next layer is restricted fund balance. Those amounts could be spent only for specific purpose, and they have a higher restriction. It could be outside government, higher government, or it could be mayor council restricting that with the form of ordinance. The next layer is committed fund balance. Those amounts are amounts set aside and have a very specific purpose, but a little bit less restriction. Those amounts could be set by resolution or motion to approve. Then we have assigned fund balance. Those are neither formal resolutions, neither ordinances, nor restricted, but they're earmarked. They have a specific purpose and they have a specific program attached. And then, of course, everything that left at the end of the year and basically not committed, not assigned, and non-restricted is called unassigned or spendable fund balance for the general fund. Next slide is taken from the presentation at the end of the fiscal 2020 from the audited financial statements. And I just want to bring it back to show you that the largest fund balance was at fiscal 16. We were almost at $8.4 million. And then slowly it got decreased. We utilized the monies for capital projects. And now at the fiscal 2020, we're at $6.6 million, which is better and healthier than the prior year. For the next slide, I'm going to talk about what each line item, which each category means and what do we have in this category. So general fund balance, total of it as of fiscal 2020, I'm taking the audited numbers just to be consistent. We had $6,168,982. $3.4 million of that was non-spendable. It consists of due from the sewer and the stormwater funds. Those are inter-fund balances. This amount is reduced in fiscal 21 by roughly 1.7% by the motion of mayor and council. We have restricted balance. Restricted balance consists of slot revenues, and the slot revenues have limitations on how monies can be spent, which come from the high level of the government. We also have our own restriction by mayor and council by the ordinance, which is impact fees. We have balance in assigned fund. We have healthcare, community, and a little amount in the police department. And mayor and council assign specific, purpose for those funds, just earmarking them for the specific projects. And their unassigned balance at the end of the year of 2020, we had $1 million. Those monies are available for spending in the unexpected contingencies. For the next slide, if we look at, it's basically the same thing, but I built the little squares just as a visual. Some people like to look at the figures, some look, easier to understand when you put it in the graphic. So the main part, if you think of it as a roof for each room of the house, is a general fund balance, and it's equal 6.2. And then you have little rooms set aside, and each room has a purpose and has an amount of money sitting in it. The non-spendable, the restricted, and assigned. And those amounts can vary at the end of fiscal year, year to year. Next slide, please. So why do we need a balance? Why should we maintain the balance? And why is it so important to have so many layers? Well, the main part is obviously the uncertainty in the future funding, because things could happen. Reduction in county or state shared revenues. We can have revenues reduction and losses related to direct programs and fees. And here where the stabilization fund balance would come as a help. Stabilization is to prevent the interrupted service that we provide or mitigate the effects of the occasional shortfalls in revenues. Or that reduction fund, if the general fund, which we do, carries the debt, we need to support that. And in case if we have a great reduction in revenues, we need to ensure that the short-term liabilities will be covered. It could be contingencies that we have not anticipated something, and God forbid something happen, pandemics, hurricanes, floods. So here we have a disaster recovery fund that could come and help us to be prepared and have some funds that we can start put in and supporting the short-term services and not to be interrupted. And planning for future, we have periodic large expenditures. Either it's emergency capital project or we anticipate a capital improvement project that we would like to set aside monies each year and spend in the nearest future. So here we have a capital reserve fund balance would be really helpful. So I kind of went really fast, but at the end of it, basically it's all very important to have all these layers, and healthy balance in the general fund is very important. To have monies allocated in the reserve and special allocation, it could be committed, assigned, restricted, and as well unassigned balance is very important. To be prepared for a disaster, for future planning, for capital improvements, and make sure that town is in a good financial health and be prepared to assist the public for the better future. That's basically all I have, and I'll take any questions if any.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Finance Director Natalie Slay?
Yeah, I have a question. On those reserve funds you mentioned, Natalie, what are the standard percentages they recommend that we work towards? What's the goal you want to achieve here?
Well, expendable balance, as G4A recommends, it should be no less than 60 days. But it's basically up to us to decide how well and healthier we could be or better prepared for the future. So it's in our discretion to decide whether we want to do a little bit better than 60 days, whether we want to be just in the middle or better than that.
And the other question I had was on the slot revenue that we take in. So the amount you showed, I think was like $32,000 or so. Is that what's left over after paying the debt service on the police station?
Yes, so monthly amounts coming from slots revenues getting basically rolled into the general fund and not setting aside until we complete all of the capital project amount, and then we could basically set it aside and not spend it, become totally restricted.
And so we take in a good amount of that slot revenue. It's in excess of $500,000 a year, I would assume. But how much longer do we have to pay the police station?
We have about 2.5 years left.
Okay. And then once that's complete, we could use that money for another building project or whatever.
Right, it has restrictions. It has higher restrictions. We just have to follow the guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Now, one thing I would like to add a little bit more detail to, Councilmember Nur asked about the recommended fund balances. We talked about spendable. Natalie, maybe Mary, can you go back to the, I think second to the last slide of the presentation. Natalie discusses a couple different types of funds. Yeah, so there we are. So, yep, right there. So you'll notice like the stabilization fund, debt reduction fund. So the stabilization fund, Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, the GFOA also sets out a recommendation for that as well. Granted, the municipality has to tailor that to our needs.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the debt reduction fund, there are different, and this is the reason we're having this presentation is because it's going to lead into the discussion for our next meeting related to the draft reserve policy. So with that being said, there are also some other examples of municipalities that have different types of funding levels for their stabilization fund balance and for their debt reduction. So you will see those presented during the draft policy. The disaster recovery is a little bit harder to anticipate in the sense that you can never, I mean, look at the mitigation plan we were just looking at. It's very difficult to speculate what level of damage the town may receive for any particular storm or disaster. So with that being said, it's really going to be a ballpark figure, and it can be adjusted, say, once we hit the threshold that we want to try to achieve, we can always go up from there. The capital reserve fund, that's also, I think, tailored to each specific municipality.
Would it be possible to get that information you referred to from other municipalities and other resources prior to the discussion meeting?
You will definitely get the draft reserve policy with the discussion items. Natalie, do we have the ability or the resources in a concise manner that we could pass that along to the council for their review?
I can send what I've been looking at in the past, but just keep in mind some of the municipalities have a book loan reserve policies. Some of them have just only a couple of sentences, and some of them pretty much have it in a couple of words and the charter is spelled out. So it's a very range. I certainly can send what I have, but my idea and my advice is basically go through what we have and decide what is the best for the town of Berlin.
I would still like to see what other folks have.
And Councilmember Burrell, also, if you take a look, and we can pass along this information as well, the GFOA has a really rough draft of a reserve policy. It doesn't really fit some of the tailored needs that we have for the town of Berlin, but it does offer a little bit of insight on that also. So we'll pass that along as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Councilmember Nur, to your second question or second point, the debt service on the police department. I do just want to clarify for everybody watching at home, there is no debt service per se on the police department. It's not a bond that's been floated for that project. Those monies were borrowed from the general fund and are being paid back using the slot revenue. And then Natalie, if you could just give a rough amount of the revenues that we see annually with that.
We receive average of $25,000 per month, 25 to 30,000.
Thank you.
And in the past, obviously, because of the COVID, it was much lower, but it looks like lately we've been getting back on the schedule of receiving good numbers.
And then the other point I would add is that if you take a look at the FY21 budget, you will see where that money from slots revenue is going into or slated to go into the reserve fund. So,
Right.
yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you mentioned we funded that police station out of the general fund. Why did we choose to do that?
That was before me. I'm going to yield to the finance director, Natalie Slay.
At that moment, the projections were coming in the lower amounts and we had a balance available. Like I said, in the past, we had a very healthy general fund balance of 8.4 million. So as the project kind of developed into, or so many things were, I don't want to say overlooked, but were rescheduled, redone. And so the numbers come up at the higher as planned. The decision by mayor and council at that point was totally finance that from the reserves of the general fund.
Thank you. Councilmember Orris, you have your hand up?
Yeah, yes, excuse me. Thank you. It's not really a question, Natalie. I'm one of those folks that likes the data and the graphs. So while we go through this, I appreciate you keep doing that. That's really helpful for me anyway. And I think that's all I had for right now. Thank you for all your hard work on this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Finance Director Natalie Slay reference to the general fund balance and the categories that were previously discussed? All right, we'll make sure that we get those resources out to everyone, and you'll see the draft reserve policy coming out in preparation for our next meeting.
And please call me or stop by and see us if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, let's go on to agenda item number 4, which is going to be the announcement of the date of the tax rate, and I'll be taking the lead on that. So Natalie, the FY22 budget schedule, is that online for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the FY22 budget schedule also outlines that the mayor will present a tax rate for the first introduction and the first reading at our next regular scheduled mayor and council meeting on March 8th, 2021, and that'll be during the 7 p.m. regular session. Also, if you're taking a look at that budget schedule, you'll notice that the second meeting, March 22nd, there will be a public hearing in reference to the tax rate. So just mark those things on your calendar. I think that's everything. Did we hit all the announcements that we need to make for the FY22?
I just want to add to the tax rate, every meeting for introduction and for adoption will be advertised in the newspaper.
Thank you. And let's move on to agenda item number 5, the town administrator's report.
Mayor and council, I have just a few things. We've gone back and forth, but I just want to clarify. Mayor, you fill in the blanks for me, but assuming that the positivity rate with this pandemic stays for 7 consecutive days below 5%, we will return employees to full schedule. And the plan now is, and it's a moving plan, but March 1st and then the following week, potentially opening up buildings to limited access to the citizens of the town.
Right.
And that's a moving target, folks, because we don't know what the positivity rate's going to be.
Right. So like Town Administrator Fleetwood mentioned, we've been following the state positivity rate and the local Worcester County positivity rate very closely. The benchmark that we originally set when we shifted back to the virtual capacity and the altered staff schedules was 5% as the positivity rate for both metrics. And we're seeing that met with the state level, but our local level data continues to bounce just north of the 5%. So with that being said, once we've hit the 7-day consecutive period, we will bring staff back in the manner that the town administrator just mentioned. And then from that point, what we'll do is we'll have a metric or at least an understanding of what that date is. And then we'll issue a press release for when town hall is going to open back up. And then we do need to determine a path forward for how we're going to start meeting again, because we do have some public hearings that we'll have to accommodate. I like the sense that we're able to address public comment, and then we have a public listening session hopefully coming up as well. So those metrics, Zoom may be the best way for us to be able to do that while we're still in this modified density. But thank you.
And with that said, just to reiterate, the scenario could present itself where we're open up. If you think back before we closed the last time, we allowed 15, 16 people in the chamber in addition to you folks. So that said and done, we've got some things that, as the mayor said, that need public input. So we very well may be open, but we may still continue doing the process as we're doing now, because I think that we can accommodate more people via Zoom versus that limited number in the council chamber. So I think that's going to be a week by week, meeting by meeting determination. And the second thing I wanted everyone aware of, the appraisal for parcel 57 that has been ordered. It's not in hand yet. The first meeting in April, which is April the 12th, there will be a discussion regarding short-term rentals. So,
In April, we will have a discussion. We're going to aim for the first one, but in April, there will be a discussion of short-term rentals.
and then on the 22nd of March, we will have a public input meeting reference parcel 57 and parcel 410. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. And then the departmental reports.
Now I'm gonna go the Hollywood Squares. Tim?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a few things to report on. The biggest one is the SHA project on Bay Street and Route 50. We've started into that project, and hopefully if the rain holds off, we'll continue to work on that project. This week, we're starting meter reading tomorrow. So we'll be in and out of people's yards basically for the next 2 or 3 days. So if anybody gets any calls or anything, that's us, okay? And then also on Prospect Drive, we installed a new underground service to a new residence. And also on Gray Street, we installed a new overhead service. That's Christ Street. And then we're doing meter reading this week. That's all I have to report.
Okay, Natalie?
We're going into the general fund draft discussions. We're meeting with each department head, and Jeff and I and Mary discussing the general fund, and Jeff and I are meeting with department heads as well. Just a reminder that general fund budget work session at April 5 o'clock, and I'm not sure if it's going to be Zoom or in chambers. That's basically all I have to add.
Okay, Ivy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I wanted to first start off by reading a definition of what community is. A community is the spiritual condition of knowing that a place is shared by people who care about the possibilities of each other's lives. It is the knowledge that people have of each other, their concern for each other, their trust in each other, and the freedom with which they come and go among themselves. Wanted to talk about the Berlin Farmers Market. In just over 2 months, the fourth season of the Berlin Farmers Market will begin and run every Sunday for 24 weeks, May 2nd to September 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Last season, we were faced with unprecedented challenges during the pandemic. We had to adjust to allow for physical distancing. We needed to come up with a new layout, thereby expanded the market from Pitt Street to include Commerce Street. We had 30 farmers and food cultivators. We weren't sure how the community would respond during the mandated restrictions and shutdowns. The Berlin Farmers Market was a monumental success. At a time when the local grocery stores were running out of food, the community could depend on the ability to purchase local food, baked items, seafood, and more right here in town, outside where it was safe, masks being required. The community looked forward to Sundays. We even opened the market an hour early to allow for seniors to do their shopping before the rest of the public. The Berlin Farmers Market was so successful that the downtown businesses decided to open at 9 a.m. on Sundays and placed merchandise-loaded tables outside. Even some businesses normally closed on Sundays opened. In what was a very sad and lonely time for many of us, the community spirit was thriving here in Berlin on Sundays. Pedestrian traffic more than doubled. We went to great lengths alerting pedestrians that Main Street was not closed to traffic. We added additional signage. Many still crossed Main Street not realizing traffic was still moving. Much of the community and businesses alike have reached out asking for Main Street to be closed to vehicular traffic on Sunday mornings. After reviewing this with staff, it is staff's recommendation to close Main Street from Broad Street to the entrance of the parking lot next to World of Toys. Broad Street would remain open, and access to the parking lot behind Main Street would also remain open. Many purchased coffee, pastries, and the like to enjoy during their farmers market visit. We would like to create a community gathering setting by also having the 13 cafe tables and 26 chairs awarded to us through grant funding to be placed on the shoulders of North Main Street to allow for additional seating and physical distancing. Thank you very much. That's my statement for tonight.
Ivy, do you want that map up?
Oh, yes, please. So that's the proposed map for the upcoming 2021 season. As you can see, the roads would be closed at the end of Pitt Street at William, at the end of Commerce Street at Broad. It would also be closed at the end of the World of Toys building, where the cafe tables would be set up between Victorian Charm and Sisters. And then it would also be closed at Broad Street and Main Street to allow for traffic on Broad Street. If you could show the next map of what it was last year so you can compare. Thanks, Mary. So last year, as you can see, the Main Street had remained open and people would have to cross Main Street in order to visit the entire market.
So just to add a little clarity for this request and for all of our scheduled town events, we have to request those road closures through the state. So we can request them, which we are working toward, but I do know that in some instances during the heightened sense of the pandemic, those were not being granted, but we are trying to move forward and request all the closures that we typically would ask for. We're just at the mercy of the state with whether or not they grant that, because Main Street is a state highway. Ivy, Director of Economic and Community Development, we are seeking, would this require a council action in order to request this closure?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
We are.
yes, it would. I spoke with State Highway Administration last week, and they are reviewing road closures on an individual basis. Some have been denied, but what we'd like to do is go ahead. I wanted to present this tonight to get your approval before we make any, before we contact SHA at all with the request to close the road.
Thank you. And we have several hands up. I'm going to take them in the Hollywood squares that I see them. Councilmember Orris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Ivy. Just a couple questions. How many vendors did you say are anticipated for this year?
Well, last year we had 30 plus. This year we've already had 22 signed up, with the rest verbally acknowledging that they would return. We also do have 3 new farmers coming this year.
Okay. And then I just have a slight concern. What's the process for notifying the fire company?
When the State Highway Administration paperwork is turned into our police department, they notify the fire company, and the state sends out paperwork noting I think it's almost the entire county that that particular road would be closed.
Okay, thank you. And then my other concern would be places of worship on Sundays. Is it possible that we, should this go through, do a, can we do a code red or some sort of notice to those folks?
100%, yes. We usually, whenever we do something, our department we send out a press release. We usually update the berlinmainstreet.com website. The D3 updates the town website. It's in the newspapers, but we usually put signs up, also yard signs, letting people know. A lot of times we'll put a banner up, but by all means, we'll let everybody know that. I think actually, Mary, I think a letter, when we close the roads for the Christmas parade, we send a letter out to all residences affected by that. So we would do that for the farmers market. We would do that for this as well.
And you did mention, just to clarify, that the parking lots would still be accessible and open.
Correct. So if you think about downtown, the only part of Main Street that will be closed to traffic is between, sometimes people can actually, they see it better if I mention store names. So it'll be closed by Victorian Charm down to Island Creamery, and on the other side of the street from World of Toys to the Church Mouse.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like a little bit of clarity, if you don't mind. So we talked about some public notice and some other things. What are we in reference to? The road closure, or are we saying in reference to the farmers market? Can we clarify that just a little bit, please?
Yeah, I was asking for, should this go through and SHA approve it, that we do some sort of notification, like a code red due to road closure, or other closure due to the farmers market, however you want to.
I would say that I think for the sake of remaining somewhat standard on how we handle road closures associated with all of our events or activities, I think we should follow a similar template. I don't know if anybody can elaborate on what that typically is, but I don't recall that being a code red. I do know that it's clearly identified that the road is closed, and it's advertised on our website, but.
We don't typically do a code red for road closures for events. For something like this, it really wouldn't be handled differently than any other event is handled, any other time that we close the roads.
Right, I understand that, and not to belabor the point, but if this goes through, we're going to have 4 weekends until September where both Saturday and Sunday Main Street could be closed. So I think it would behoove everyone that we let people know that, especially those folks on Sunday mornings.
Well, as Ivy mentioned, we would do press releases. We would notify those that are directly affected, but I would not recommend a code red for a street closure.
And we can actually, Natalie, tell me I'm wrong, we can add something onto the bottom of the bills as well.
We can add a sentence to the bills, but I'm not sure if the bills will match the time frame. I'm just afraid that we're going to be off in the time.
Now, don't we typically send out an event calendar in the utility bills?
No, we send out a town holiday schedule, but not an event calendar.
Maybe what we could do in an effort to help let everyone know when there may be a closure or some impact to their travel. Maybe what we could start doing is crafting like a quarterly document that goes in with the utility bills that would satisfy the timing issues, and it would also provide some clarity and a quick reference on what particular weekends or events may have a road closure. Would that suffice, Councilmember Ors?
I think that would be good to start with. Yes, thank you.
Welcome. And then I see Councilmember Nichols' hand up.
A couple things. Ivy, when I look at this, you said that the closure would be when you're given the visual and you're given the storefronts, you're saying from Victorian Charm, Island Creamery, World of Toys, and Church Mouse.
Mhm.
But I see down at the bottom, up by Range Reef.
Oh,
Broad Street.
right. I'm sorry. You're correct. Rains.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the record and for those who are watching, thinking, you know what I mean? That those from
Right,
Mingo
Range
and up,
all the way down.
right.
You're correct.
Yeah, so we're stopping right there at the corner, right after the Atlantic Hotel in the corner of
Correct.
the antique shop or thereabout, right?
Yep, you're correct.
The other question I had for you in regards to the farmers market and vendors,
Mhm.
are there stipulations to the types of vendors that can participate in the farmers market? Like, do you have criteria?
Oh, yeah, we have a very lengthy application and we are one of the only producers only farmers market in the area, which means you have to actually grow what you're selling or bake what you are selling. You can't purchase something from someone else and
Got you.
and resell it at the market. We are strictly a producer's market only.
Okay, that was one of my biggest questions that had been brought up to me recently. But if they were the manufacturer or the producer thereof, then the likelihood, well, that would put them somewhere in that realm, possibly.
Correct. And we also, we have we like to add farmers and food cultivators that actually complement the existing farmers that we already do have. We don't want to, there's an expression called glut the market with too many of the same.
Got you.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Ivy, I think it's also an important note to make that last year, it's hard to believe that this has been going on for a year, but when COVID-19 originally hit, that we did open that up to our businesses because there were restrictions for shopping indoors. And we did open that up to be able to allow our businesses to move some of those goods out to the sidewalk and be able to take part in that also. So as long as the pandemic's still taking place, I think it's probably good practice to continue that.
I agree.
And then Councilmember Burrell, you have your hand up as well.
Yes, yes, I have two things. First, Ivy, you just said that in reference to Shanika's question concerning we sell what we grow.
Yes.
Does that apply to seafood vendors also?
Yes.
And you talked about a group of staff got together and developed this street closure plan. Was the fire department included in that development?
I'll defer that question to Town Administrator Jeff Fleetwood.
Council member, any street closure, any event that we do, anything that affects any street in town, that ultimately will make it to the fire department, excuse me, or fire company, so that they are well aware of this.
My question is in the development of the plan,
No,
not after the fact, but was the fire department included up front?
no.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Now, I do have a follow-up. Councilmember Burrell, could you add some clarity as to why we should bring them in an effort so that when we move forward in the future that we can bring them into these planning meetings if there's something of value that you would like to see. We typically do, like Town Administrator Fleetwood mentioned, reach out after we've gotten some feedback from the council regarding whether or not it's something you'd like to move forward with. Then the police department does a planning process as if it were an event like any other. And then the fire department is brought into that conversation as well.
But I think the fire department has an abundance of knowledge related to possibly traffic flow, related to time it takes to get to an emergency situation, and time it would take to go around a street closure. I would just think it would be in our best interest as a town, building a relationship with our fire department to include their knowledge on the base planning of these events.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's why I asked the question, is so that we can start doing those things if that's, and you bring up very valid concerns. So in the future, and with this included, we will definitely reach out and see if there is some impact there, or some ways that we can work together to limit any effects to public safety or public service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions pertaining to the possible closure of Main Street associated with the farmers market?
Yeah, I just have one question. Ivy, last year, when we were getting towards the end of farmers market season in September, the number of vendors started dwindling. And towards the end, it really got light.
Correct.
Would it be advisable at that point, once we hit September, to not close Main Street? Because the event is somewhat smaller than it would be.
I don't see why we wouldn't. If last year we had to space everyone apart, so we had to keep them at 6 feet in between each vendor. So when the farmers, they don't have anything to sell in September, we can, if the restrictions are lifted, we could compact the farmers market to a smaller footprint, which we could either put it back only on Pitt Street or on Commerce Street, dependent on which farmers were going to stay. And then we can bring the ones that were left on one of the other streets to move closer together.
Right, so you would modify the plan as we hit that.
Correct. And the only reason that it was on Pitts and Commerce Street was to allow for the distance between each of the vendors and to allow for the lines. And, the demand grew. So we added more farmers, the demand from the community, and more farmers wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, I thought that worked out well.
Sure. And I also wanted to say something to Councilmember Burrell that previously in all of the downtown events, I've met with Dave Fitzgerald and Jimmy previously about some of the road closures. And we've historically, the reason that this was chosen, this layout was chosen, was because it's been used over the last, 10 plus years for other events.
And the other topic that seemed to bubble to the surface when we started talking about the farmers market was the fact that really straddling, in essence, a state highway, Main Street, with a farmers market on Pitts and Commerce, it presented some challenges when it came to pedestrians crossing the roadway. So by implementing a possible closure of Main Street in this area, we can help heighten the sense of security for people that are going to cross from one spot to another in search of their goods at the farmers market, while also helping maximize the ability for people to hopefully congregate a little bit. I know even during COVID, but hopefully as we progress through the year, we can put this behind us. And with that being said, the congregation around the farmers market can help provide some secondary economic benefits to our stores. So it's really a public safety concern, along with some additional secondary economic benefits, hopefully, for our businesses. And Councilmember Burrell, I still see your hand up. I don't know if I forgot to lower it or if you still have another question. Oh, thank you. All right. So as mentioned, I don't know if there are any other questions concerning the possible closure. We are looking for a formal action from the council with whether or not they would like to move forward with this.
I'll make a motion. We approve the proposed layout for 2021 Farmers Market.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Nur. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
And I have a second by Councilmember Purnell. Councilmember Orris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And the proposed closure of Main Street for the 2021 Farmers Market season passes unanimously with all council members present.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Do we have any more departmental reports?
Yes. Chief of all the police.
Nothing to report.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Dave Engelhardt,
I have nothing further to add this evening. Thanks, Jeff.
Mary,
Just quickly, the Parks Commission will be meeting the first time in several months next Tuesday, March the 2nd at 5:30. That will be via Zoom. And we are gearing up, working with the DNR Forestry Program again to do the backyard buffer program for Worcester County. Berlin is kind of hosting that. And that is where DNR gives away free tree bundles to any Worcester County landowner who is on a ditch, river, stream, waterway with the intent of providing obviously a buffer for erosion. That's all I have.
Kelsey.
Just a couple things. The check register, you may have noticed, was not included in this packet. It will be included in the next packet. It was not provided in time for this packet. Also, we had a new Public Works Superintendent start today, James Charles. He goes by Jimmy, and he is going to be shadowing Dave Wheaton over the next month. So you may see him as he learns the ropes of Public Works. I'm meeting with One Digital on February 24th, which is this Wednesday, to have our first of several meetings about the healthcare renewal for FY22. So as that progresses, I'll provide updates to you guys. And then on March 8th, I'm going to be meeting with Dealey to go over workers' comp insurance again for FY22. So all this is starting to ramp up. That's all I got.
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. So any questions for any of our department heads that we didn't address while they were speaking? All right. So number 7 on the agenda are the comments from the mayor. I do want to just reiterate that March, we do have some busy meetings ahead of us. The first meeting in March is relatively full with some items and presentations. Also, we'll introduce that tax rate. The second meeting in March, we're going to have the public hearing on the tax rate, and we're also going to have the public listening session that the council requested regarding parcels 410 and parcels 57 at Heron Park. And that's all I have for this evening. So let's move on to agenda item number 8, and that's comments from the council. So Councilmember Nichols.
Good evening, group. The first comment I had was in regards to the session, the listening session portion of our March 22nd meeting. I guess it's a question because it's been brought up to me a couple of times. With that listening session, are we literally listening, or are these individuals, some of them have plans that they want to share and show? Are we looking at plans as well, or are we just hearing ideas?
So in an effort to group the discussion centered around the topic at hand, which is really parcel 410 and parcel 57, the council, the way that I understood our last meeting was that the council wanted to hear public input about whether or not the public
I can't hear you.
I think he froze.
You froze, Zach.
He's not aging.
If you can hear us, you are frozen at the moment. You may want to go out and come back in. I'm hoping you can hear me.
He's coming back.
Okay.
The kicker will be if he's changed clothes.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Welcome to 2021 Mayor and Council meetings. So where did I leave off with Councilmember Nichols' question regarding
You last said that the hearing will be to have the public,
Okay.
and then you cut out.
Perfect. All right. So we'll start back up. So the hearing will be regarding parcels 410 and parcels 57, and we'll try to lay out on a map.
You are in and out again if you can hear us.
It must be your connection, Zach.
It's hard to believe that we have really but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this does not include the passive use area where the ponds are, and that's along the railroad tracks also beside the pond. Let's see. So really the public listening session is geared predominantly to weighing the public's appetite for whether or not they would like to move forward or see the council move forward with any potential sale of those parcels. With that being said, Councilmember Nichols, I wasn't really envisioning any formal presentations. We do want to offer the opportunity for anyone who would like to speak to have that opportunity, but really not geared towards like formal presentations regarding the property. Does that answer your question?
I believe it does. I think I wanted to make sure that the public, the community who's listening was aware as to what it was that we were hoping to see. So, I mean, like I said, several have discussed their prospective ideas and presentations. So I just wanted to make sure that most of us are on the same page as far as what that listening session looks like on the 22nd.
Right, and I mean, that's really part of the discussion that we had geared towards like the committee as a whole. They were really like a brainstorming entity that was formed by the mayor and council to help provide some direction for those things. So there's been a lot of dialogue concerning a possible direction for the park, but this is really the way that I understood the discussion during our last meeting. Is really centered around whether the public would like to see that those parcels unwound or sold off, or whether they would like to see those retained by the town. Now, with that being said, it's the job of the council to really weigh the financial implications of those things. So the public listening session is geared to hear kind of the appetite from the public, but we have to weigh the financial impacts and the holding costs and all those things that go along with it. So good question. So now let's see, let's go on to Councilmember Burrell. I do not have Hollywood Squares anymore. I just have one square.
You know, I had some of the same questions that Shanika had concerning the session, and we voted to disband that committee who had the obligation to hear these ideas and to weed out what may be obtainable and to take away those far-fetched ideas. I'm sitting here wondering if we acted prematurely in disbanding that committee. I have had emails and telephone calls from the public, and while engaging in these conversations and replying to these emails, it dawned on me that this should have been one of the responsibilities of that committee that we just disbanded. And I'm wondering if anyone else is feeling that.
And that's a good piece of information. I will say, and it's welcome to discuss that as a group. That's why we're here. I will say that I don't know the exact timeline of how long that committee worked and how many ideas they sifted through, but I would say that they were rather voluminous, and that the committee was not saying that any idea currently is not a valid concern or of good interest or worth looking into. I will say that that the committee did search through a lot of different presentations and try to brainstorm and have several brainstorming sessions as to what they would like to see with a mission laid out of trying to find some revenue generation and things of that nature for the park. So I would say that that's a very valid concern, Councilmember Burrell and Councilmember Nichols, and I'm sure everybody else on the call. But I would also say that we did have a committee that worked through a lot of those logistical issues for a number of meetings and well over a year. So any thought or comments? It seems that this is an item that's on a lot of our minds. So if there's something we want to talk about as it relates to that, feel free.
Yeah, if I could just bring up the fact that, we're about to make this important decision on whether to keep or sell one or two of those parcels. And yet we have a group that wants to do a presentation before us, the decision makers and the public, to show us ways or show us how we can generate revenue from that those parcels. So I think it would be in our best interest to hear that presentation rather than just say, no, you can make public comments. But they want to do a PowerPoint presentation and really show us what we can do there and turn it into a revenue generator. I don't see why we wouldn't allow that.
And I don't know if it's that we're not allowing that. It's that we're allowing anyone with an idea or any thought or conversation surrounding those parcels to be able to have that same opportunity to speak. If there's something that needs to be passed along beforehand or material that they want the council or anyone to review, I mean, our emails and contact information is publicly available. Anybody can pass that along to all of us at any time. But I would say that I'm sure we've got a ton of people with some really good ideas, and we're offering that same opportunity to every single person on March 22nd.
Zach, this discussion might be too big for just one meeting or one session held on March the 22nd. I think we should not limit ourselves. I think that if the public has an opinion, if the public has a presentation, if the public has something they would like for us to consider, I think it is incumbent upon us to provide them that opportunity, to provide them that public opportunity.
And there is precedent for this, Councilmember Burrell. We did have a public listening session that was separate and aside from our mayor and council meeting when it regarded the property tax increase. So if it's something that the council believes would be too voluminous to handle in conjunction with our regular business, we can try to find another date that does not coincide with a regular council meeting, and the sole topic can be the discussion of these parcels, or we could open it up. It's up to the council, seriously, whether they want to open that up to the entire park or whether we want to try and limit the discussion and keep it focused on parcels 57 and 410. I'm open to either option.
Mr. Mayor, and council, first I want to say thank you to everyone who's reached out to me and to the rest of the council with emails and phone calls. They really do help. And I'm personally making a little log and not putting any names on it of comments that I'm receiving and sharing with my colleagues. In regards to the committee was formed in 2017, and we were meeting fairly regularly there for those 3 years with some community input, but not as much as we're getting now. And I mean, I think that's great that we're doing it now. I think it's great that it's a discussion. And to touch base on what's been discussed already is I was envisioning our own separate public hearings for this topic. I do not think it's a good idea to have it on the 22nd, which is the same time as the public hearing on the tax rate. This subject, in my opinion, is too big for one meeting. I think it should be a separate, kind of what you referred to, Mr. Mayor, with the budget discussion 2-3 years ago. So if I need to make a formal motion on that, I will.
I think we can satisfy. It's really to gain to gain clarity about what the council would like. So if it's going to be more broad than parcel 57 and 410.
No, I'm not saying, not to interrupt, I'm not saying that necessarily. I think it could be on 57 and 410. But we open it up to everyone who may want to have a discussion about it. If they want to do a presentation, we coordinate that. I mean, if it's a 2-hour meeting, you have 10 minutes. I don't want to put more on staff, but we coordinate with Mary or Kelsey, and they have 10-minute time slots. Not everybody may not have the access to PowerPoint and high-tech technology, if you will, but that doesn't make their opinions less valuable. So I want to hear everybody. I want to hear those who may agree with some folks, those who disagree. That's what I want to hear.
And so what I'm hearing is that we need to pull this out off of a separate meeting, similar to like what we did with the public listening session with the taxes. And is there a time limit that the council would like to consider? Because that would be a rule change, and it would have to go, that I would want some formal action on that regarding a time limit for presentations.
Couldn't this be a 2-hour work session?
I would limit the word work session. So in an effort to make it a little easier to understand, work sessions are where the council and staff come together to work on something that we do not typically allow public comment during those periods. So I think a public listening session would probably be a little better, where it's not really geared towards any formal action, but just literally to listen to what the public may want to say regarding the topic at hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the one thing that I want to hear from anybody is, what do you want to do? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to keep it? That's the biggest hot topic that I'm hearing from everybody. And I'm getting a lot of input. I'd love to hear it in a public forum. And if someone wants a presentation and want to go on for a little bit, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing in that comment that you do not want to limit a time frame for
No,
presentations.
I don't think we need to do that.
Okay. And I'm also hearing, and if anybody feels differently, that this is going to be a separate meeting outside of our regularly scheduled council meetings. The one thing I would say is that I think we should look at March, just from the standpoint of, if we look into April, I think basically all of our Mondays are stacked with work sessions regarding the budget. So if we want to get this in and the listening session before before the April meetings, which are relatively stacked, I would say we're probably looking in the middle of one of our meetings in March.
The sooner the better.
I'm with you.
Yeah, the sooner the better. I mean, we need to get folks in to talk about this in person. Or, well, in whatever way we can.
In Zoom.
Yes.
The other thing I would ask is that we've had different times for these meetings. And you'll notice like some of our work sessions come at 5 o'clock. I think for an effort to have more participation, we should probably aim for a time not being 5 o'clock and maybe more towards 6 or 7 o'clock at night. How does the council feel?
I think 6:30 is good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
6:30. I agree with that.
6:30 p.m. on a Monday night, not during one of our council meetings. So we will,
Okay.
Is there any, looking at that only provides 2 opportunities. So is there any night that does not work for the members, the majority of the members of this council?
You're thinking the
Yes.
15th?
It would be not the 8th and not the 22nd. So a
15th.
Monday night,
So
The
the first and
15th.
15th.
Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights are not good for me.
would Monday, the 15th, I'm hearing that that's a possible option. Is that something that would work for everyone's schedules at 6:30 p.m.?
Yep.
Would,
It's
well,
good for me.
I'm just gonna say, would next Monday, the 1st work?
I don't think you're giving enough time.
I think we want to make sure that everybody knows when and how and where they can
Yep.
present. And if we are going to open it up to presentations, I would ask that any presentations be submitted at least a week in advance so that we can compact that all into a presentation. How do we want to go about? Do we want to have the presentations go first and then all other public comment come after that? Or how do we want to go about saying who's going to go first? Do you see what I'm saying? So if we open it up.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody that has anything to say to reach out to each one of us as council people well before the meeting and show us what their presentation is going to be. That way we're well educated way before they show up and we have a chance to ask them questions. So when we get to a meeting, if they want to make a presentation and past that, residents, any concerned citizens can just voice their opinions to us
I agree.
during the
with you.
meeting as well as before.
But to answer your question, Zach, do the presentations first and then have the public input.
Okay. And so we will ask anyone to send in their presentations a week before March 15th. We'll compile those presentations into something that's suitable for the council. We'll pass that along as we do with any other public meeting. We'll post the agenda and we should not have any trouble posting the presentations beforehand so that just the same manner we follow for any public meeting. It will be via Zoom. It'll be streamed live on Facebook. Public comment will only be taken via Zoom. And trying to think through any other logistics. Mary, do you have anything that I'm missing, or Jeff?
Nothing that I can think of.
I think you've hit everything.
Okay. Now, I think that covers that item, and I believe Councilmember Nichols and Burrell have spoken for council comment. If there's anything I'm missing, feel free to speak up. Councilmember Nerb, is there anything you would like to add?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Councilmember Purnell,
All good.
Councilmember Ors.
I have nothing further tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see. So we have covered agenda item number 8. We're on to agenda item number 9. Mary, I'm on my phone right this moment, so I'm going to rely on you to guide us through the public comment.
Okay.
We can,
The first question is submitted by Marie Valong. In the chart for Berlin, there was 0 property damage. How is that determined? I think she must be referring to the county's hazard mitigation plan. And if I might, I would suggest that because it is the county's plan, she would need to reach out to them to determine how the data was compiled.
and we can also follow up with Director Birch and see how that applies and if there's something we can do better moving forward. So,
If I may, Mayor.
Yes.
And I can speak somewhat intelligently about this. What folks need to understand when we get into a situation such as a hurricane or a flood, whatever the case may be, if it's not reported to MEMA, it's not captured. So, I mean, that's the big thing. I can tell you that. And then there are also parameters on a threshold of what qualifies as an event, if you will. There's 2 levels of threshold. One is the total impact on that jurisdiction. And then the other threshold that goes with that is the individual property damage.
Yeah, Jeff's correct. I remember the one storm we had about a year and a half ago, and the county contacted me about damage, and we had quite a few branches down that hit houses, and we went around and took photographs, sent them to the county, and they came back. They did not meet, and I'm just like Jeff. I don't know the threshold, whether it was dollar amount or how the significant damage level was achieved, but we had none. We had places where people had to have their roofs repaired, new plywood put on, new shingle put on, but they did not meet that catastrophic level, I guess you would call it. So I think that's why it's not in that hazard mitigation plan, that we had no claims or no major damage.
thank you. Mary?
Next question is also, excuse me, from Marie Valong. And it is, what portion of property tax is commercial and residential? I imagine Natalie would be able to pull that answer, but I don't know that she would have it at hand.
There is it's the same rate for commercial and residential. For the assessments, I'll have to pull this report and request from the county. The percentage, I believe last year was 70-30. 70 residential, 30% commercial, but it's the same rate, the same billing, and it included in the same assessment based, all of the commercial and residential together.
And I would say, I think I don't have the report in front of me because, like I said, I'm on my phone right this moment. But from what I recall, the first few pages of the hazard mitigation report with Worcester County does break out some commercial and residential tax base. I don't know if it does it down to the municipal level, but there is some data about that, at least at the county level, in that mitigation plan.
I can
Do we have-
request the information from the county for the fiscal 21 for the exact numbers. I have the old information from prior years.
And then maybe what we can do is present that also with the budget disclosures. I think that could be helpful for people to understand.
Sure.
All right, Mary, do we have anything else?
One last, this is a comment, excuse me, from Pam Hay. And her comment simply is, I agree, we need a meeting on lot 410.
Thank you. And do we have anyone that's in attendance that's joining us virtually on Zoom that would like to speak in person?
I don't know. I'm assuming that attendees have the ability to raise their hand.
Okay.
If so, they could do that to indicate that they wish to speak, and I can change that setting so that they can do so.
Okay, so anyone that's tuning along with us via Zoom in this forum is more than welcome if they have a question to ask that at this time, and we'll go through that process of unmuting you so that you can speak.
Okay, we do have one raised hand.
Okay.
Tyler Betts, and I have just allowed you the option to speak.
Now,
Hi
Mr.
there. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to offer a test. So folks do have the opportunity to raise their hand and be acknowledged.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
And Mr. Betts, if you're still with us, name and property address, please, for the record.
No. Yes, Tyler Betts, 506 William Street.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Do we have any others?
Not that I see.
Okay, and then do we have any comments or questions from the press? And the press is open to use the same medium via Zoom. We will allow those public comments from the press as well. We'll give them, or anyone else that maybe is trying to find the button, just a moment. All right, seeing none. Mary, do you see any?
I do not.
Okay, Councilmember Burrell, you're up.
Move to adjourn.
And all in favor, say aye.
Second, aye.
Seconded by Councilmember Purnell. Motion passes unanimously to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for working through the technical difficulties, and we'll see everyone at our next meeting.
Great
Have a good
job.
day. Stay
Good night,
safe.
everyone.
See you. Bye-bye.